Good morning, Pickswise Nation. Already got some good vibes going in the chat. Tom saying, let's cash out on this Saturday. I like the vibes. And I'm joined by two guys that always help me cash. At least we got Jared Smith and Mark Zinno. What's going on, boys?
Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy New York. I guess it's like, the first day of school, Christmas morning, I guess. Big day for New York bettors.
Big day for New York bettors. And I'm glad you bring that up, Jared, because, who doesn't like free money, right? And books, the sign up bonuses, there's so many things for new bettors in New York to take advantage of. And over at the Pickswise Twitter page, you can just go over to the page, click, and find out all the spots that are offering out those promos and that free money so that you can place your bets in those spots. So head over to the Pickswise Twitter page, and also go over to the Pickswise website and check out a better guide for new bettors to help you make smarter, more informed bets. And of course, you can just tune in with us every day at 10 a.m. We also like to think that we can help you make some better bets too, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
Give us a little margin for error there, Mark.
Yeah. Sometimes some days are better than others, but and then of course you can go over to the App Store or Google Play and download the Pickswise app and subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our content that we put on YouTube and online. On today's show, we got a lot to get to. We're going to talk some NBA, talk some college basketball, a lot of great college basketball games today. NFL, tricky week in the NFL as we wrap up the regular season. We're going to talk about Georgia and Alabama and then finish things off with our play of the day. All right, boys, let's get right to it. And let's bet it. Let's start with the NBA. Zeno, you got a play tonight. We're looking at some line movement overnight. Grizzlies Clippers the total went from 218 to 215 and a half. And you still like the under even with that movement.
Yeah, look, the Clippers, I bet on the over with Clippers and Phoenix the other night, and they just did not show up. There's not a lot of punch right now in this offense. And Memphis is a really good defensive team. They're, I think, 7th or 8th in the league in field goal percentage defense. And I don't like the spot here for the Clippers. Plus, guys, this is a 12 o'clock start on the West Coast. It's a weird morning start, which you almost never see. Although both these teams are coming off a day of rest, it's just one of those things. Are these guys really going to have their fresh legs underneath them for a 12 o'clock tip? I'm really kind of playing on that angle a little bit more than anything. If this was a night game, I would look at it a little bit differently. But it's just weird for these guys to get out of bed and get up for a 12 o'clock start, 3 o'clock on the East Coast. And I'm putting some of that into my handicap that the start of this game will keep things slow. Plus, I don't like the Clippers offense right now. And the way they're playing. And one other thing I'll take a look at. Milwaukee is the only team playing tonight on a back-to-back after last night. I would, believe it or not, a game against Charlotte, I would look 234.5. Seems like a really big number. I'd look to the under there as well.
All those Hornet games go over. They just don't play defense, and their pace is crazy. So I don't. And that under actually went to 214 while we were talking in the Grizzlies Clippers game. So things are moving quickly with that one. Jared, you got anything in the association that you're looking at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, that Charlotte total did tick up a little bit. So if you do like the under, as Mark said, you're getting a little more value there. 235 I'm seeing now. You're 100% right, Alex. The pace of the Hornets, the Lakers actually surprisingly led the league in pace for most of the year. Well, that's changed now. Lakers are slowed down just a tick. Charlotte now leads the NBA in pace. The Bucks are 8th. Offensive rating, Charlotte is 3rd. Milwaukee is a little further down on the list than 6th, so they're not too far down on the list. So those are offensive teams that run very quickly. So if you do bet the under in that game, you're going to be sweating out, right? You got the under sweats real early on, Alex.
I love the under sweats. You know that. Another game I'm looking at. I don't have a pick for this one, but I'm curious you guys' thoughts. Knicks Celtics, that epic game the other day. They're playing again. I'm looking at player props here. Well, FanDuel doesn't have any Evan Fournier props up. Jared, you see any Evan Fournier?
No, I heard he might not play tonight. That was what I saw.
Yeah, listen, when you torch your former team 3 times, you don't need to test it a 4th time. Just take your rest. Yeah. But the 7 points with the Knicks, which side do you guys like in that one? Do you have any strong feels?
I mean, I haven't seen any movement off of it. Actually, no movement at all, total or spread, from 208.5, which is a really low total for an NBA game. One of the lower totals you'll see in the whole league this year, probably. And the Celtics laying 7. So that's a tough one for me. I don't like laying 7 with this, but I
It's
don't
a
like
big number.
laying
Yeah.
points with Boston. Boston's had a really rough time covering numbers this year. So I would probably lean to the Knicks. But again, revenge spot 2 days, 3 days after you just beat a team at the buzzer. Tough to probably bet either side there. Low total game relatively. I would say the spread probably comes into play at some point, but lean Knicks in the under, I would say there probably.
Celtics need to figure it out. They need to get Jason Tatum some help. I don't know what's going on with
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown, but he's not playing at that all-star caliber level that he was that we're used to seeing him play recently. All right, let's move on and let's talk some college hoops now. We got a lot of great college action today. I'm going to start with a game that I like. We got Kansas at Texas Tech. And I know we were talking about Texas Tech last week, or a couple days ago, when they were at Iowa State, right? And did any of you watch that game by chance?
I did not.
Yeah, well, you didn't miss much. You missed what probably is anti-basketball, is what that
Mm.
game was. I mean, it was 30-22, 7 minutes into the second half. That's what that game was. It was pretty brutal. But the one thing I saw when I was watching that game, Texas Tech plays hard and they play incredible defense. That's what they do.
Yes.
But I'm actually going to lay the points with Kansas in this spot just because, I mean, Kansas is in Iowa State, right? I mean, they're one of the better scoring teams in all of college basketball. And, you know, while Texas Tech does have that elite defense, I just don't think that they are ready for that Kansas offense that ranks 8th in points per game, 4th in offensive efficiency, and they don't score enough for me to back them covering those 5 points. So I'm going to lay the points with Kansas in that spot.
As long as Terrence Shannon isn't playing for Texas Tech, he hasn't played since before Christmas. I don't really think I could bet on Texas Tech right now because you're right. They're a defensive team and he's their best offensive player and they don't do a ton else offensively to generate a whole lot. Even though their offensive efficiency numbers are relatively good for a team that doesn't score a lot. They're top 70 in offensive efficiency. They're a pretty good shooting team as well, 45th in effective field goal percentage, but they turn it over a lot on offense and they don't make their free throws.
The
which
total's
is the easy point.
Yeah, the total's interesting in that spot too because they slow down teams obviously with their defense, and then they also do you have the pace numbers up for them? Because I feel like they were playing at a really slow pace in that Iowa State game, and maybe that was just that game.
Yeah, they're 247th in average possession length, and Kansas is relatively fast, 53rd. So there is a bit of a discrepancy there between how fast Texas Tech wants to run and how fast Kansas wants to run. Kansas likes to go. And that's going to be the matchup in that game. Kansas top 5 offensive efficiency, top 10 in EFG percentage. They don't turn it over a lot. They rebound well. They shoot the 3 well. And we'll see if they can score, consistently on the road in Lubbock against this very good Texas Tech defense.
Let me tell you the way I'm going to play this game, guys. Trends are your friends, right? And we've talked all about Texas Tech's defense. Number 9th in the nation in field goal percentage defense, 9th in the nation in scoring defense, allowing just 57 points per game. However, Texas Tech, 240th in America in turnovers. They average over 14 turnovers a game.
Yeah.
To a team like Kansas, that's a recipe for disaster. But here's the way I'm going to play this game, guys. Kansas are 12-1 on the year. You know how many times they've trailed at halftime this year? Zero. You know how many times they've had less than a 6-point lead at halftime? Once, and it was the last game they just played against Oklahoma State. They were tied. I'm going to take Kansas here in the first half. Saw the line at -2 this morning. It's only one possession. I'll trust the trend here that Kansas, because they get out fast and can score early, as long as they don't go completely cold in the first half, I trust that they will have more than a 1-possession lead at half because they've done that in every game this year prior to their last game against Oklahoma State. The trend is, my friend, I'm going to lay the -2 in the first half with the Jayhawks.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's the way to play it. Afternoon game. You don't have to worry about a sleepy start. It's not like a noon game or anything.
If you're scared to bet full game, just say that. Just say you're scared to bet the full game.
No, it's not because
I mean, it's fine. I mean, listen, you found the trend that it's going to work for you.
The way that Kansas has played, they sprint out to a fast start and then they let their foot off the gas pedal. And so, 5 points is not a ton of points for them to cover, but it's just one of those things where if Texas Tech ramps up their defense in the second half, you could be in a situation where Kansas's letdown leads them to a much tighter game than one expected,
Could be.
I'll trust the way Kansas gets off to the start because I've seen it in every single first half this year.
I'm gonna watch this game. There's no way we get into a spot where Iowa State literally didn't score for the first 7 minutes of the second half. Like it was the worst basketball
Wild.
game I've ever watched. Like it was
That
brutal.
was
How
not
about
an
Jared?
easy game to watch.
No, it was not, especially when you when you had money on 4.5, and then there's that half court buzzer beater at the end to bring it to 4. But we don't need to relive that. That is days in the past now. But Jared, you got a couple picks for today.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting into that part of college basketball season where I can really start to make some assessments on some of these mid-major teams. I'm not one of those guys that really spends a ton of time capping them before the season because we're kind of knee-deep in football. But now we've got some data to work with. I'll give you my favorite play first. I really like this Oral Roberts team. And we talked a lot about them, or we watched a lot of them last year in the tournament. They made that great Sweet 16 run. Max Asmus, one of the best players in the country. He is continuing to play at a very high level, averaging about 21 points during a very nice stretch for this Oral Roberts team. They've won 5 of 6. They're at Western Illinois today. They were laying 1. I got them at 2. It's kind of 2.5-ish now. You probably can find a 2 out there in the market, but Western's lost 3 in a row. They're kind of going in an opposite direction from this Oral Roberts team. And this is all about the Oral Roberts offense, which is one of the best in the country, averaging over 82 points per game. They're 24th in 3-point percentage. They're facing a Western Illinois defense that is 244th in defensive efficiency. So I think that's a big mismatch today. I think Oral Roberts and Max Asmus is going to really get going. I like the Eagles to lay less than 3 points in that spot. And then I hate to do it, but I'm going to keep fading my alma mater because they keep winning these games in absurd fashions. And they're facing, unlike the other 2 days where they were facing Northwestern, who's decent but not great, and Indiana, who's slightly below that. Today they're facing Purdue, who's arguably one of the best teams in the country, certainly in the top 5, top 10, coming off of a loss against Wisconsin. And Penn State is off of those 2 wins. So this is kind of a, bounce back, let down kind of a situation. And the thing that really stands out to me in this game is Purdue's size. And Penn State really is an undersized lineup. They're actually 263rd in average height in the country out of 358 teams, and Purdue's 13th. So this is a big versus small matchup. I think Purdue is going to outmuscle them. The one thing that scares me, it's an early game, noon start on the road. That, we'll see how Purdue comes out and if they are able to cover the number, if they start slow. But I think Purdue's up for a big win today. And I like Valpo at home today against Southern Illinois. Line flip overnight there. This is So Ill's first game since December 28th. And Valpo's played twice since the New Year. So, again, we're talking about those COVID pauses, those New Year's winter break pauses. We'll see how teams come out. I think Valpo starts strong today against Southern Illinois. So those are my 3 picks today. Oral Roberts, Purdue laying a big number on the road against Penn State, and then Valpo short number against Southern Illinois.
I like that Oral
Hey,
Roberts.
Jared, if Penn State's basketball offense is anything like their football offense, you got
Oh,
nothing.
here we go.
Here we
Thank
go.
you.
Too soon, Mark. Too soon. I'm still recovering from that
I know.
Outback Bowl.
Called the under in the Outback Bowl.
Oh my gosh. Zeno, the other big
I had to
game
get one
today,
in,
tennis.
buddy. I'm sorry, I just had to get one little one in.
No, listen, Mark. It's okay. I'll remember that for down the road.
Remember that when Navy
put that in the
stomped Army
back
next
pocket.
year. Remember that. Yeah. The other big game, Zeno, Tennessee at LSU. You have a pick in that game.
Yeah, I'm going to lay it with LSU here. I like the spot for them. Look, goal percentage defense. And what has been interesting about LSU, both these teams average around 72, 73 possessions a game. Over the last 3, both these teams have upped that to 76 possessions per game. I like that, favoring LSU. Will play a little bit of a faster pace and can score better than Tennessee can. So I'm going to lay the 3 here. It's a short number. I also, believe it or not, lean to the under in this spot. Both of these teams have won 4 or 5, so they're coming in fairly hot. But this could be one of those games where you're talking about 2 good defensive teams. Tennessee, number 51 in America in field goal percentage defense, so very good from that standpoint. But I think it'll be a tight game back and forth. If LSU can push the pace a little more, which I think they're more apt to do, they'll be more inclined to make more shots than Tennessee will as a better shooting team. So I like the Tigers here, and I'll lay the 3.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's switch some gears now, and let's put on our thinking caps. Let's get out the crystal balls, and let's try to navigate these landmines in week 18. I mean, this is really tough to pick these NFL games. We got 2 of them today. And let's start with the Chiefs. Chiefs at Broncos. Chiefs laying 10.5 points. The total is 45 in this spot. Jared, what is your pick for this game? What do you got for the people?
Oh man, this is tough. So I will preface this because we're doing the show tomorrow too, and obviously NFL is going to be a big part of the conversation for the next 24, 48 hours or so until we figure out who's playing in the playoffs, what the brackets are, what the matchups look like. This is the most difficult and least exciting and most maddening, tilting, whatever adjective you want to use, week to bet NFL spreads and totals because we just don't know who's playing in the games. And that can be frustrating because you put all this time into a handicap and you try to figure out who's doing this. And then all of a sudden on Sunday morning, or in this case, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, we find out this player is only going to play a first half, or they're only going to play 2 or 3 drives, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how long certain players are going to be playing tomorrow. The advantage for today in this first game is that the Chiefs don't know what the Titans are doing. And frankly, that's kind of I think the schedule makers didn't really do him any favors putting them in the Saturday spot, because if the Titans and the Chiefs are playing at the same time and the Titans jumped out to a big lead against the Texans, likely Andy Reid starts pulling starters in the second half to rest up for what is going to be a game next week in the wild card round. The Chiefs do not have that luxury. They have to treat this game like it is a playoff kind of atmosphere where you have to win in order to have a chance to clinch the top seed in the AFC. That being said, listen, the Broncos have been dreadful over the last few weeks. You're seeing their running game take a bit of a dip with Drew Lock under center. He was the 4th worst quarterback in the league last week, according to the QBR numbers. They have not played well with him under center. I find it hard to believe that they are going to turn that around tonight, even though they're at home against what has been a very good Chiefs defense the back half of the season. This is a Chiefs or pass game on the spread perspective, because you just can't take points with Denver because they've been so poor offensively. But on the other side of the ball, I kind of like this Chiefs defense. And that's kind of where I'm going to look at, because I saw, again, contract incentives are a big thing this week. And I'm looking at my guy, Chris Jones. Let me get the exact number here so I don't foul it up. But he's going to make about $1 million if he gets a sack in this game. The exact number is $1.25 million if he gets 1 sack. Now, that's a tough number to find. I haven't found it yet. Usually the sack numbers don't pop up until very close to game time, if they pop up at all. If I find it, I'll tweet it out, but I am looking for a Chris Jones sack number in this game, because we know these guys like to get their bonuses at the end of the year. Sacks can be fluky, but you get usually pretty decent prices on them. So that's the only angle I have for you here, but I would lean Kansas City just because of the incentive angle with winning and staying alive for that top seed.
Everything you just said is exactly why I'm going with Chiefs first half. Just it's under a
Yeah, that makes sense.
touchdown. It's under a touchdown. I like the Chiefs to come out hot, especially the way that they looked in that Bengals game and the way that that game finished. I think that they want to come out at least offensively hot and defensively too. Because they kind of laid an egg there, and not kind of, they did lay an egg there in Cincinnati. So they want to come out and definitely put on a good performance. So I think if you're getting that under a touchdown, for me, I don't have a problem laying that again with this bad Broncos team with Drew Lock under. It's just under 7 points. I like the first half number, and I'm going to get out of that game because it's going to be an ugly game. Zeno, what's your feel for that?
Well, I would even add to that and tell you that if you even want to be more aggressive, take the Chiefs in the first quarter if you're at 3 or less.
Yeah.
Because in reality, the idea, as Jared talked about, if the Chiefs get out to a big lead, I still believe Andy Reid will rest his starters in the third quarter. And
Very possible.
Quarter, which is why I'm on the under in this game. Denver's offense is putrid. You're not going to have optimal conditions in Denver for weather. It's going to be cold and windy. And so you could expect more of a run game than necessarily a pass game. But the Chiefs' desire is to get out early, take Denver out of the game emotionally. And if they can get a 2 or 3 score lead at halftime, I would expect them to take their foot off the gas, just run the ball, kill the clock, and under 45 should easily come in. I mean, this could be like a 24-14 kind of final here, where the Chiefs get out to 21-0 early or 21-3 early, whatever.
Chad anytime.
And then all
Chad
of a sudden,
anytime.
What's that?
And then it's Chad anytime.
And then it's Chad anytime, exactly. And so I think the under is the play here, given all the conditions. But I agree with you, Glaze, on the premise of the first half. But I would tell you, it's one of these things where we don't see teams, this week, Jared, when you talk about betting it, I always look at halftime and make a second half bet, because you can tell.
Totally agree.
Flow. If you look at a game like Indianapolis, Jacksonville, where the spread is huge, it's over 2 touchdowns. If Indianapolis is not up by 20 by half, the chances of them scoring 21 in the second half and not giving up a single point are slim to none. Like they're in a dogfight for all 4 quarters. So I would look and see how the first half goes. You could even sort of try to double down or make back money that you lose if you take a first half bet and glaze. If you take the first half bet and cover with the Chiefs, I would double down and take the second half bet with the Chiefs because, again, they will
I'm
emotionally
getting
take
out of there.
out of the game.
I'm getting out of there.
And the second half will emulate what the first half looks like.
I can guarantee you if that first bet hits, there will not be a second half bet. I'm just going to be done with
there's
that
a
game.
tough there's some really tough decisions to make this week for these coaches.
Absolutely.
I don't envy the coaching decisions this week because you're damned if you do and you leave your guys in and they get hurt. You're damned if you don't and you pull them and then they come out flat next week. It is case by case. It is very difficult to handicap now. You almost have to have every game on your screen, the Octobox, and you have to watch what the pace is and where these guys are come halftime, come at the end of the first quarter. And you're right. The first game between these two teams was incredibly low scoring, 22-9. So these teams don't play shootouts historically. And in the final week of the regular season, it is a buttoned up approach. You don't want to put too much on tape for next week. There is a lot of, landmines to navigate in this particular week. And you just have to hope that you don't, trip on any of them as we're kind of going through these player movements, which can be really volatile.
I'm trying to remember that 22-9 because that was a little bit of a sweat. Was that line 9?
Well, there was a pick six. Teddy B threw like a pick six, and the Chiefs offense did not play well in that game. That was right when they were starting. That was
right before they started to click.
Yeah, it was kind of when they were starting to rev the engines a little bit, and it was a Sunday night game, and Teddy Bridgewater did not play well. But the Chiefs defense really did, and that's kind of been, in my opinion, that's really been the pulse of the season for the second half for Kansas City, other than last week where Joe Burrow went absolutely bananas. It's been the defense that's really led the way for this Chiefs team.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the second game. This one's a little more interesting to me. We got Cowboys in Philadelphia. Cowboys laying 3.5 points. That total is 44 and a half. The Cowboys still playing for something. I mean, they could move up to maybe second place, third or fourth. I mean, there's still some seeding movement there that can happen for the Cowboys, but I can't get there and trust the Cowboys fully. I don't trust that offense just yet. So I might be taking the coward's way out again, going with the first half bet. It's under a field goal, and that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just lay the 2.5 points and go with the Cowboys in this spot. I don't like the Eagles. I really don't. They run the ball well. But what is it about the Eagles? Maybe it's Nick Sirianni. I don't like how he runs things.
Well, Miles Sanders is out for the game, I think, right?
Everyone's out for the Eagles. Who's playing?
So the Eagles, the Eagles have nothing to play for.
I would tell you this much, guys. I'm on the Cowboys -4. And when the line was closer to 7, I would have still taken the Cowboys at 6.5 or less. What's not to trust about the Cowboys offense at this point in time? They are clicking on all cylinders. They have something to play for here. Seeding will matter to them. They won't get the top seed, but being the number 2 or the number 3 seed is beneficial to them. Should Green Bay slip up, they'll have an opportunity to host the NFC Championship game. But again, they want as many home games as possible. Jerry Jones wants as many home games as possible, playoff games in Jerry World as he can get. So they're going to be on all cylinders here. The Eagles are stuck facing either the Buccaneers, the Rams, or the Cardinals, depending on what happens in the NFC West in the first round. They sort of know their fate and their destiny. They won't be engaged in this game at all. I'm going to lay the 4 with the Cowboys without hesitation. I love Dallas.
Maybe we got different definitions of clicking on all cylinders because I watched that Cardinals game last week. Did you watch that Cardinals game last week? Because I watched that.
They played well in the second half. I'll say this about the Cowboys in the second half of that game. The Cardinals offense had a bunch of explosives. One of the most explosive plays in one game all year. I think they had 10 explosive plays in that game. The rest of the game, besides those explosive plays, was very mundane for this Cardinals offense, down to down. And that makes sense. The Cowboys play very aggressive defensively. Dan Quinn gets up in, the secondary man-to-man press coverage, and they get beat deep. But other than that, they are very good at controlling tempo.
Well, let's just say, for argument's sake, you don't trust the Cowboys offense. What's not to trust about their defense to shut down an Eagles offense? This isn't exactly powerful. It's not exactly potent.
Yeah.
Like at this
the only
point,
issue I see is personnel. Parsons out, Anthony Brown, Curse, Diggs out this week. That, to me, But again, for the Philly side, their entire team is, and they were already going to bench starters anyways in this game, right, even before they got bit by a COVID bug early in the week. But when I looked at the Eagles depth chart, hold on, let me pull up the Eagles depth chart right now. The Eagles depth chart's in really bad shape. I mean, up front, they've got Kelsey out. Lane Johnson's questionable. Goddard's out. Miles Sanders out. Boston Scott, Jordan Howard. Kenneth Gainwell is the starting running back tonight. On the defensive side, Cox up front, Singleton, Avery at the linebacker spot, McLeod, Maddox, Epps in the secondary, all starters. It's a tough ask tonight for Philly. They're basically gearing up practice squad guys.
First half, less than a field goal. Get in, get out, get your win, and just move on. That's my approach. That's my approach to today.
That's logical. That's logical to me.
Yeah. Jared, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. When Dallas had their full personnel, and it was Philly, if it's Philly at full strength, and this line was 7.5, I love this as a teaser game for Dallas because I agree with Mark. I do think Dallas has more to play for than Philly. They don't have everything to play for, but they have more to play for than Philly does in this spot. This is a division rivalry. You know that both teams, whoever's on the field, will be up for this game. And it's personnel that has tilted this line now to under a touchdown, now almost to the point where you really do have to consider betting Dallas on the spread, especially if this gets down to 3. I didn't tease Dallas because of the line movement, but I was thinking about it. But I do think Dallas wins this game.
We got a comment in the chat here that is actually pretty interesting here from Michael. Biggest fear of the Eagles today is Minshew. He's the wild card and wanting to ball out. Let me tell you something. That's a great point because did you guys see that video after he got that win earlier in the season, hugging his dad?
High ceiling, low floor.
He wants to win. He wants to come out and ball. He wants to show that
he's got a lot on the line too, because he's probably playing for a lot next year in a contract and a starting job somewhere. Maybe.
Now I'm scared. I'm scared of Minshew. I'm scared. I'm scared of Gardner Minshew.
Don't make Mark come up here and talk some sense into us. He's gonna get on the next flight.
Minshew, for crying out loud.
I'm scared of Gardner Minshew. Yeah, but listen, today's games are gonna be tough. Jared, we're gonna be talking. And Jen, are you on tomorrow? We're gonna be talking tomorrow about these.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is gonna be even tougher. So this is just the beginning here. Let's switch gears now because we are just a couple days away from the college football national championship. Georgia and Alabama. That line has actually moved. Georgia now laying 2.5 points. Guys, this is obviously a rematch, the SEC championship game. How do you see this game playing out differently? Do you see this game playing out differently?
I'll let Mark go first because I know he has a very strong opinion here.
Well, look, this game comes down to more than anything gut, right? And feel for what goes on. Like, I hate to just leave the handicap to that, but it's kind of just like, in Texas Hold'em, if you're a poker player, you got a pair of 10s or a pair of jacks as your hold cards pre-flop. What does your gut tell you about whether I'm going to see a higher card come out and all somebody's got to do is match one of them and I'm on the losing side of this thing? And so that's what this boils down to. I think that Nick Saban put together a perfect game plan the last time these two teams played. And I wrote this write-up for the Pickswise website. You can catch it there. But it's just about whether Nick Saban is going to use the same game plan or different game plan to be able to outcoach and outthink and outstrategize Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart is 0-4 so far against Nick Saban, mostly because he does not choose the right quarterback to go out and beat an Alabama team. That's not a knock on Stetson Bennett. That's not saying Stetson Bennett is a game manager. But if you look at the quarterbacks that beat Alabama, the Trevor Lawrences, the Deshaun Watsons, those guys are not saying they have to be at that talent level. I'm just saying they have to be that style of quarterback, and Stetson Bennett isn't. Now, that doesn't mean that Georgia can't keep this game close, but once again, if you're giving me points with Nick Saban in this spot, and I already bet it at a field goal because I wasn't going to wait for the 2.5 because I don't like that spot. But if you're giving me points with Nick Saban here, I'm going to take them and trust the fact that until I see Kirby Smart beat Nick Saban, that it won't happen. I think Nick Saban outcoaches, outschemes him, outstrategizes him once again, and is able to figure out a way to come out on top.
I think that makes sense to me. That being said, though, my gut says Georgia. And you're right. It is kind of a race. It's that's what they call it in the Hold'em world. Ace King against a pair of deuces.
Yep.
Is the face card going to pop up or the ace going to pop up? That's going to bury your pair of deuces. I feel like I'm kind of carrying the deuces here because I'm on the favorite. And the ace king, usually it's 51-49. The deuces have the slight edge until the flop. And then we'll see what the flop holds. If the flop holds Alabama with another great offensive game plan, Bill O'Brien cooking up another gem, then I'm in trouble here because I think the Georgia secondary is the weak part of this team. That being said, Alabama secondary really scares me here. They're down to their third and fourth string corners, and I think Georgia with a healthy Pickens, and they got that big tight end going, Bowers, the other night against Michigan. Yeah, there are some offensive wild cards, if we do the poker reference, for Georgia that I don't know that are being fully accounted here. But this game is going to come down to 5 to 10 plays on third and fourth downs, and it's going to come down to execution. You can make a logical case for both sides. I've heard very smart people on both sides of the aisle here. I don't think you can go wrong betting this game in either direction. It's what your gut tells you. My gut says it's really hard to beat a team twice in the span of a month, especially a team as talented as Georgia. And my gut says to trust the market. The market tells me everyone's on Bama and the line hasn't flipped. I think 2.5 is where the floor is here. Everything I'm hearing from Vegas, this is not going to get to 2. The money line's probably going to sit at around the -130 to -150 range for Georgia. I think you're going to get a little bit of a discount on the Georgia money line because of all the Bama money that's coming in. Usually a team that's favored by 2 or 3 points is around -150 on the money line. We're seeing it a little bit shorter than that because of all of the downward pressure the public is putting on Alabama. And really, we haven't even gotten to the window where the Bama money is going to really flow, which is probably Monday morning through game time. Really, right now, people are still worried about the NFL and the Saturday, Sunday slate. Monday, I think, is when the intensity will really ratchet up on this Alabama money line, and I think that's where you might get a bit of a discount on Georgia. So if you like Georgia, maybe wait another day or two. Right. If you like Bama, I would get it now because I think the Bama money will just be overwhelming over the next 2 days. Now, that's not to say Bama can't win the game. The public wins too. It's really about the gut, how you feel about these two teams and the execution in those key spots. These teams know each other. This game's going to come down to 5 to 10 plays on those key downs. And it's going to be a fun game. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's a close game. And it's certainly going to be an entertaining one to see which team kind of gets the better scheme.
And Jared, I'll add 2 things. Sorry, Glaze. I'll add 2 things real quick. One in reference to the money. Look, a lot of the early sharp money came in on Georgia, which is why the line stayed where it was, or was at 2.5 and then moved to 3. And so that's a little bit of an indicator that initially the books weren't willing to move. They were never going to 3.5 because the pour in on Alabama was going to go that way. I thought maybe they might juice Georgia a little bit at -120 and leave it at 3, but that didn't happen either. So a little bit of the early money and sharp money did come in on Georgia. The other part that does scare me a little bit for Alabama is the missing of John Mechie as far as their wide receiver core. That could be problematic. But I think between Williamson and whoever else they have running through the Georgia secondary, it should be enough. It's just a mismatch problem that now Georgia doesn't have to contend with 2 receivers of that caliber going out there now as opposed to one with Mechie being out. That's a little bit of a fear for me from a game plan standpoint. But again, I have to trust what my eyes have told me. And again, I don't think that the game script, I hate Stetson Bennett in a negative game script, period. Like, he's just not the kind of guy I want to have to play from behind. And so if Alabama figures out a way to get up early, that I think is going to be very problematic for Georgia. Now, remember, last time Georgia was up 10-0 in the first quarter early into the second quarter, and it looked like they were going to run away with it. And all of a sudden, Alabama was able to flip the script on them. Adjustments will be big as well. Sometimes people make too much of that. I necessarily don't. I think in-game adjustments are a critical part of coaching, and Saban is as good as Belichick when it comes to that.
Looking at the chat here, we got Sam saying Roll Tide, Kevin, Bama, and Saban. Tony saying Alabama, Corey saying Georgia. Guys, look, I already got Georgia, and I locked in the 3 the other day over at Maryland Live. I'm going to have to drive to Maryland Live again, like in 2.5. Listen, Larry Hogan, if you're listening, figure it out. New York figured it out. I don't want to wait 8 months. It's ridiculous. I have to drive to go put this ticket in. But I love Georgia in this spot, guys. Listen, go back to the SEC championship game. 2 things that absolutely cannot happen when you're playing Alabama. You can't turn the ball over, and you can't have mental mistakes. Those are 2 things that Georgia did. Stetson Bennett threw interceptions and a lot of busted coverage and a lot of mistakes on the defensive side for Georgia, and bigger than the secondary, because I think it's easy to look at the secondary and say busted coverage or where was so. the defensive line, or maybe it was Alabama's offensive line playing well, but Georgia's defensive line also didn't play the way that they've been playing all season. So you can't give a guy like Bryce Young clean pockets and time to sit back there and pick you apart. And that's exactly what happened in the SEC championship game. I think that we're going to see Georgia come out. They're going to run the ball more. They're going to slow this game down. And I think that Georgia is going to come out and win this game. Bama's just a little too banged up for me on the defensive side. And I think this is the time for Kirby. They've been the best team all year long, and they had one terrible outing, and now everyone's off Georgia. I mean, they couldn't have looked any worse, right? The last time we saw, I mean, it's kind of like the NFL. It's like you kind of almost have to forget what you saw the last time you saw these two teams play, and just remember, Georgia has been the best team all season long, right? And I'm just going to trust that and roll with that, and hopefully they can win by more than a field goal.
It's tough to say that they can't, based on what they did last week against Michigan. Mark, you're 100% right. The Mechie situation is intriguing. I'll give you some numbers that may or may not sway you on either side. Bama's 1-4 against the spread in college football playoff games, the one being the one that they won a couple weeks ago or last week. And I think, to me, third downs, as we mentioned, fourth downs are key. Bama's the number one third down conversion team in the country. Georgia's 32nd defensively, allowing third down conversion. So strength versus strength, those few 5 to 10 to 15 plays that over the course of the game are on third downs, on key downs, is huge. And the question that I ask myself every time that I'm even considering Alabama in this spot, can Bryce Young play as well as he did in the SEC championship game? Can we expect 400 yards of offense and just he played, for lack of a better word, a perfect game. And Bill O'Brien called, for lack of a better word, a perfect game. That's a high bar to do again. I think Bama has to play that well again to win this game. Can they? Sure. Will they? I don't know. It is a lot to ask. It's a very high bar.
Before we move on, I do have a very, very important question because, been dialed in on social media, watching, boots on the ground, how they're covering this thing. Did you guys see the picture of Saban with a leather jacket yesterday?
Yeah, Indiana Jones.
Okay.
In Indianapolis,
Listen,
right?
What does that, what is your feel for that? Because that tells me that either Bama's going to win by 50, or maybe is Saban getting a little too smug? I've never seen him in a leather jacket, a tan leather jacket. I mean, come on.
A handicap with a Coach Ward or a press conference. I mean,
I'm just asking a question.
He dressed like a Cheez-It and he won the Cheez-It Bowl. I don't know what to tell you. Like
Prince Chedward.
I'm not even going to entertain that. Let me ask you guys this. Because
I think he's not focused. He's worried about his fashion. He's not focused on the game.
Oh, come on.
The tougher handicap here, guys, isn't really the side. For me, it's the total. Because I think the side is a coin flip. This 52, look, the last 4 times in this series, it's gone over the total. And these numbers have been in the high 40s, if not low 50s. You talk about, 41-24 back-to-back times, 35-28 a meeting. I am struggling to figure out whether I go over or under this game. I would say correlating-wise, the under favors Georgia. The over obviously favors Alabama. Georgia's got the better defense. Alabama's got the better offense. That seems pretty academic to say. But, with this game expected to be a field goal game, 52 seems like I lean on the under because I just feel like it'll be slower paced than last time. But I would tell you, I think the first half under is probably smarter, as they'll come out a little bit conservative and a little bit tense, and the second half likely over. If you go back to the last time they played in the national championship, hell, even go back to the SEC championship game, most of the points were scored. Well, Bama's all points were scored in the second quarter, but it takes a little while for these off with each other. I think I would lean first half under, but I don't get a real good feel on the total overall. Where are you guys?
I think you're right. I think it's Bama over, Georgia under.
Yep.
But to me, this is the fly in that ointment. It's that Bama secondary. And how aggressive is Georgia's offensive game plan early on in this game? That is going to be a big question mark for me, because I think if it is Kool-Aid, McKinstry, the freshman, and then the JUCO as the starting corners for Alabama, if I'm Georgia, I'm chucking it and I'm going after those guys.
It has to be aggressive.
Yeah, and you made we jokingly talk about Kirby Smart's maybe lack of aggression, a little bit timid in some of these games. If that is the case, despite the fact that Alabama is hampered in the secondary, I think that is a good sign for Alabama's chances to win.
All right, let's move on to our plays of the day. Before we get into our personal plays, Jared, that 3-star play on the website, what you got?
Yeah, Seton Hall. I can't bet this here in Jersey, but Seton
Well,
Hall.
you can go over the. You can go over to New York now, and
every time I want to bet St. John's, well, I get the New York people here, and every time I want to bet Seton Hall, the New Jersey people go over to New York. Seton Hall's at home against UConn today. Good game, actually. Two Big East teams that certainly have high expectations this year. Lock Mambo, which is one of my favorite names for one of our sports Pickswise sports handicappers here. A Lock Mamba like Seton Hall laying 3.5 today against UConn at home.
All right, what you got for your personal play?
Yeah, I'm going with Oral Roberts. One thing the Pickswise Nation should be very aware of. We're at that point in my handicapping calendar where college basketball is becoming very prominent. You are going to see a sharp increase in the amount of college basketball games on my card any given night. And the amount of mid-major college basketball games on any given night, because I do believe that is where a lot of the value lies. The line movement is usually true. It's sharp movement. The public is not betting Oral Roberts. The public is not betting Valparaiso night before. So when the lines move, I know that there's smart people betting them. Oral Roberts, we've seen a little movement from 1 now to 2, 2.5. And again, it's Max Asmus, who arguably is one of the best scorers in the country. You probably haven't heard of him unless you remember the March Madness run last year where they beat Ohio State and made it to the Sweet 16. He is one of the best players on the planet, putting the ball in the bucket, and Oral Roberts can score at a very high clip. Western Illinois struggles to defend, so I'm going Oral Roberts on the road today against I think it's the Leathernecks. That's the Western Illinois nickname. That's the Western Illinois leather something. I know. It's a crazy nickname for Western Ill, but we're going Oral Roberts today.
Love it. Zeno, what you got?
Well, the trend is my friend. I'm going to stick with the Kansas Jayhawks in the first half, -2. Kansas has only not led at halftime one time this year. In their most recent outing, they were tied with Oklahoma State. The smallest lead they had otherwise was 6 against a Texas Tech team that turns the ball over way too many times. You give an extra possessions to one of the top scoring offenses in the nation. I'm going to lay 2 in the first half with the Kansas Jayhawks.
I like it.
Well, boys, listen, we talked a lot of football, but we are depriving our viewers of the great football that is going to kick off in just over an hour.
Let's go.
The FCS championship game is where you will
time.
find my play of the day. It's a little square pick, but I'm going with North Dakota State, and I'm going to lay the points. I tried to make a case for Montana State. I just couldn't do it. They got a quarterback, Tommy Mello, who just started playing for the Bobcats at the start of the playoffs. He hasn't been asked to do much. You know, they've been winning games. They're a team that relies on their defense, and they run the ball a lot. But this is going to be a tough test. I mean, North Dakota State, you know what they do. They run the ball. They play defense. They don't do any of that gimmicky stuff. They just run it down your throat and pound you. And that's, I think, what's going to happen today. I really wanted to talk about the under, but it's a little too low for me now. I think it opened at 43, now 41.5. But again, Montana State opened as getting 10 points, quickly bet down. So 7.5. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of an edge here. So I'm going to lay the 7.5 points with North Dakota State as they go for another national championship today.
One more addition I have, a good question in the chat from Michael Urbalina. Sorry we didn't get to this earlier during the Chiefs game, but they asked specifically where can we find sack numbers. They're tough to find. If I find it, I'll tell you. I haven't found it yet. But that's the only thing I have to add before we say goodbye today, because I wanted to make sure I answered that question.
You're on the hold on. Let's give the people some FCS championship talk, Jared, because you like Montana State.
I do like Montana State here. I think the movement's right. I think this game's close. North Dakota State could win it, but again, think about who's betting the game at the early stage when it opens at 10 and it goes all the way down to 7.5. Yep. It's not your average, better. It's people that have followed the FCS pretty closely throughout the year. The limits are very low at that stage. Usually they don't open up until game day. So the fact that it did move almost a full 3 points, you're still getting it above that key number of 7. I would probably take Montana State here. I think getting 7.5. But we'll see. I've been wrong before.
Listen, noon kickoff. I
never know.
Look, I didn't get to watch as much FCS playoffs as I normally do, but championship game, I'm tuned in. gonna go get my.
I mean, I'll be honest. It's really the last college football game of the year before the big one. So this is it. You get two more college football games today and then Monday, and that's it. All she wrote. Unless you care about the East-West Shrine game.
And they're playing in Fargo of the South, right? Frisco, Texas.
Right,
Fargo
of the South.
That's pretty much what it is now. I mean, listen, they migrate to Frisco.
They play there every year, basically.
They're
right?
there every year. Yeah, you can
every year.
Get an Airbnb and just rent it out the rest of the year. And you just have it. I mean, give people some ideas here. All right, well, let's wrap it up for today. Good show, boys. Good luck with your picks today. Good luck to everyone out there. Of course, make sure you download the Pickswise app and subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the action over here at Pickswise. Good luck today, guys.
Thanks, Liz.